Okay, it's going. All right, so good. So Ainsley, can we start with you? Did I pronounce that right?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah, appreciate it. Good afternoon, everyone. Hopefully you can hear me all right. Ainsley Worrell, thank you, Kara. Parks and Recreation and Cultural Resources Health and Wellness Program Director here. And as I stated, I work within the recreation area. I am somewhat connected to I got pulled into a local cycling group and really working at building relationships there. So one, out of just personal interest, but as well, being that I have the opportunity to be a part of this group, that would essentially provide me with some insight that I could share.
Great, thanks Ainsley. Susan? Oh, Susan, you're muted.
Yeah, I'm muted because the children are on the playground are having way too much fun. So I'm sorry I'm walking, but I thought I found a nice spot to do this meeting, but now I've realized it's going to be way too noisy with the children playing there. I'm Susan Hatchell. I'm a landscape architect in Raleigh. I was included in this group. I do a lot of parks, recreation, transit, Greenway Trail type of work in my practice, but I believe I was asked to be on this group while I was chair of the Bicycle and Pedestrian Commission. And so I've been on the group for a while because that was like a year and a half, 2 years ago now. So at any rate, I think the Bicycle and Pedestrian Commission is very interested in looking at how greenways interface with roadways and become transportation corridors, as well as, recreation. I mean, that's great too. But I think the BPAC is very interested in making sure the wayfinding and the safety and the curve radiuses and the maybe night lighting in some locations kind of make it a little bit more of a active transportation for people trying to use bicycles for transportation or walking for transportation.
Awesome, cool. Don?
Good afternoon, Iona. Don Belk with Raleigh City Planning and Development. I am representing our department on the master plan committee, and our interest, of course, is making sure that that greenways are part of the urban fabric. Really, we work very closely with Parks and Recreation on every rezoning case that we have. We're also my particular interest. Is to make sure that the Greenway Master Plan is integrated seamlessly with the small area plans and other studies that we currently have underway. So I've been coordinating with Chris, Nick Farr, and TJ McCourt. We have some pending area plans that will likely result in yet another future update to the master plan as well. So that is my core interest. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Don. Kara?
Hello, I'm Kara Mcleod. I work in marketing for City of Raleigh Parks, Recreation and Cultural Resources Department. And so our role is to share out, answer questions about the Greenway, certainly hear a lot on social, a lot of chatter. And so kind of hopefully translating some of that information back so that we can make some changes and think about things, and excited about that.
Good to see you. It's good to see anybody.
Yeah, it's very true, right?
Rusty?
Hey, Rusty Young. I don't have anything interesting like you guys do. You all guys seem to be I'm more of a user of the trail. I'm part of the BMR group, the Black Men Run group. And so I think we were just invited with a couple of volunteers from the group just to kind of give input as to, we use the trails quite a bit. And so I think you guys were just looking for that input from the users. And I wish I was outside like Susan.
Me too. Rusty, what was the name of the group? I didn't get it.
It's BMR. It's a Black Men Run.
Cool.
I think there's a couple of representatives from BGR as well. Black Girls Run, a part of the committee.
Cool.
And I'm sorry, my camera's not hooked up. I was out of town and came back and I didn't plug it back in. So I've been lazy.
All right.
No
And
judgment,
then so you're H Monarchy.
Yes. Hi, it's Bonnicky. So my first name is Heather.
Heather.
So I'm on this committee representing Wake Med. I've been at
Great.
Wake Med for 16 years and currently fill the role of patient access and engagement. But if I didn't work for this fine organization, I would do PR for the Greenway. So Kara, I'm coming for your job.
Hey, we're trying to get a regional thing going for the Triangle Trails Initiative, so they'll be filling that position at some point.
That sounds great. No, I'm kidding. I'm not really in the market for a job, but if I
be careful what you say out loud.
Right.
All right. Well, awesome. I'm super excited. I think I got the most well-rounded group. So yay. So our first topic is this issue around classifications. So this is an important discussion, both from, we talked a little bit about how the UDO is shaping how developers both reserve and participate in the Greenway network. So the way we designate trails has a lot of impact. But then also from the user perspective, the user doesn't know when they cross from a park facility onto a transportation facility. And so the idea, ultimately, I believe, is that from the user perspective, it should be an integrated network that allows you to get where you want to go, and you don't feel this big kind of shift in materials or standards or the experience when you go from a transportation project to a Parks and Rec project to a developer built project. So this conversation also influences things like how we prioritize trails in terms of completing out the network and those pieces too. So just to go over a little bit what we got teed off with, the three different categories that they wanted us to talk about were destination trails. So the user expectation is that this is to connect to destinations, and they give the examples of Walnut Creek, Crabtree Creek, Rocky Branch. So you're using Rocky Branch to get out to the museum, so on and so forth. Scenic trails and loops. This is the user expectation is recreation and access to natural areas. So the trail in itself is the destination. So the Neuse River Trail, Lake Johnson, facilities like that. And then local trails, this is the user expectation is to link to other trails and access neighborhoods. So Chavis Way, Edwards Mills, usually smaller connections. Maybe it's a spur connection where the trail goes just to that destination, and then you would turn around and come back if you wanted to go somewhere else. So a couple of questions just to get the conversation started. We are recording this, but I'll be typing madly to get our notes and thoughts down too. What are your general thoughts on creating classifications based on the user expectation? And then what are the specific expectations a user should have from a trail in terms of width, material, amenities, maintenance, et cetera, for each proposed classification? I think we're also kind of interested in if you guys have ideas about branding, if we had that's the main kind of backbone destination trails, could be Oak City Trails, or so if you have any thoughts around any of those topics, so kind of general, looking at it from the user, and then specifically in these different classifications, what should the trail width be? What should the material be? How often should there be water? All those kinds of things. Anybody want to jump in and go first?
I just kind of have a quick question, if you don't mind. Is there going to be any kind of thoughts about, limiting the type of traffic that's on those trails if they're classified as something differently? Because, you know, like we do news, I'm on News River Trail quite a bit, and, you know, depends on when you go or whatever, but you break off onto some of the others like Walnut Creek, Reedy Creek, and different things. And there's maybe some less like bicycle traffic on those particular paths. Whereas when you're on News River Trail, you know, you got a lot of runners, walkers, and you've got people. Now, we all know the speed limit signs say 10 miles per hour, but nobody abides by that on a bicycle, right? So I guess that's my question. If you classify a trail as certain things, are there going to be expectations as far as like speed limits, for instance, or the types of traffic that are allowed there?
Let me ask you a little follow-on question. When you say the types of traffic, are you talking about limiting it to, like, so excluding bikes, or?
Yeah, I mean, if it's a destination trail, I think that's kind of hard to do. I mean, it's kind of hard to do on any of them really, and so that's probably where it comes into play with the wider trails and different things. Cause I think that's part of the problem. You get a lot of pedestrians that are walking and they kind of take up the whole trail. And then here comes, you know, a group of bicyclists coming through, and they have nowhere to go.
I would say that most of the discussions that we have around this result not in trying to exclude a user type, but in it usually is leading in other communities to segregating and creating a discrete space for cyclists and a discrete space for pedestrians.
Gotcha.
And so that idea, you know, if that is an idea that gets traction in this group, we should pass that on. But it probably will require additional width. So the News River Trail is 10 feet wide. And, you know, as the PM and person who walked every foot of that and designed every foot of it, we were so desperate to get the easements and to get that thing on the ground. I can tell you that the easements are very tight. And so, you know, we weren't thinking big enough. I mean, we were thinking big. We've got 8 bridges over the News River and 30 miles of trail, but we should have done it at 12 feet or 14 feet wide. But we also couldn't afford that.
Gotcha. Thank you.
So what do you guys think about segregating the uses?
Well, this is Susan, and I guess I'm not really certain that it matters what kind of trail it is in my mind, because something that could be a destination trail to one user could be a recreation trail to another. So I think it really has more to do with the length of the connectivity. So to me, the longer length of connectivity, maybe the wider the trail should be, because it probably will have more users and more bicyclists and things. So, like, you know, when I there's places that I walk that I don't ever bike, and there's places that I bike that I don't ever walk, and there's places I do both. Sometimes I'm just riding for fun. Sometimes I'm riding for purpose. Sometimes I'm walking, you know. So I guess I don't really understand what those 3 classifications, because I think that each person has their own agenda of what they're trying to do. So I more see it as like the traffic, you know, if there's going to be runners, and if there's going to be bikers and walkers, and there's going to be, you know, families 4 abreast strolling, you know, it's a real difference. That to me is the difference, rather than, you know, to me, it's more the average daily traffic volume.
Yeah,
I get what I'm saying. So I don't think you can say that a destination might have more bicyclists on it, but it also will probably have more walkers on it.
yeah.
So I guess I just sort of feel like the longer, you know, maybe there's major corridors that are, you know, once they start becoming a certain number of miles long, they should be wider.
Yeah.
More than the fact that they're wider because of the type of use.
I think it makes sense to classify certain trails for certain uses if the promise that the city has or that the planners have is, okay, let me start over. So first of all, I think that we need to probably start using the greenways more for transportation. It is a very difficult thing to do because there are maintenance issues that we don't fix like we fix the roads. So if your intention of classifying a trail is to say, we're going to maintain this trail just like we would a road, and you can count on it for your transportation, then that's a totally different conversation about classification.
That's awesome. Okay. Just let me catch up, because that's a very good point. So okay, awesome. You guys are on it. I love it. Kara, you looked like you've been ready to go there for a couple of.
I mean, one of the things that I definitely hear feedback on is the biking versus pedestrian kind of conflict situation, and classifying them may be helpful for people to understand, okay, if you're on this corridor, perhaps this is what you will see, you know, understanding that particular thing. The other piece to this is the speed limit, right? And so that's something that is discussed always, you know, that 10-mile-per-hour speed limit that we have. And I think having corridors that are lengthy obviously are going to lend themselves to people biking because it's just a space. And so that need for a wider, possibly striped, so people will understand, like stay one side, calling out kind of things. Those are things that we always kind of hear from patrons. So I think sometimes putting definition around it may be helpful for people to understand this is the type of experience you may have if you go here, but also not limiting.
Ainsley?
Either, you know.
No, I'm nodding my head along with sort of what Kara and Susan had to say regarding sort of traffic and how when you look at usage from a user perspective, I think is really trying to help the public understand how those greenways are being utilized in certain areas. I think in essence, when we talk about connectivity, we are also talking about having a greenway system that is inclusive. So for instance, you may have those longer areas that folks are biking on, but then also you may have families that live close by and are going to be out walking on a regular basis. So from my perspective, I think it helps when you think about a system also that has designed in it some sort of a legend using images, if it's branding or whatever on particular spaces where we're gathering data and we know how it's being used. So we can communicate to that community of okay, if you're a family, you're coming out onto this long stretch of a way, just recognize that you are also going to see bikers. And so maybe in my head, I'm thinking, you know, there's an image on that space that says, you know, you're going to see bikes coming through this way. But I think, yeah, there is a designating them, I think is good, but I do think the public needs to understand the space and how it's being utilized by others. Because again, folks are either going to be out there biking, they're going to be in a wheelchair or something else. And I think ultimately what you're doing is creating an environment with a system that people understand how it's being used.
Well, and you're right. I live on the American Tobacco Trail, and we have etiquette signs that say call out on your left when you're passing, and it's striped the whole way. And so people kind of know how to orient themselves better on the trail. Any traction, interest in this idea of separating bikers from walkers if we were able to make it wider? No. Okay, good. That's good. But definitely interested in striping trails.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Awesome. I think they're going to run us back together here quickly. So Dawn, did you have anything you wanted to drop into this?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Any other thoughts? I love the thought about the design, you know, being driven by the ADT, if you will, or the number of the users on the trail, rather than trying to do it by looking at, because you're right, Susan, like, you know, this trail that I use out here, the American Tobacco Trail, like I rode 20 miles on it yesterday, but today I'm going to walk my dog on it. So what kind of trail is that? you know?
Yeah, and sometimes I, use the same Greenway to go to Crabtree Valley Mall to stop at a restaurant that I would just to ride and not stop.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I walk it. So I think
Yeah.
I think it's really more about which greenways are so busy that they need to be thought of in a different way. I do like the idea of educational signage and informing bicyclists that it's your responsibility to notify people not run up on their left.
Yeah.
But also the other thing, one of the major problems I see is dog walkers allowing their dogs to just crisscross back and forth and back and forth. And when you're trying to pass them on a bicycle, I mean, I'm not necessarily going over 10 miles an hour, but it's outrageously dangerous that you're going to get clotheslined by a dog.
But I'm a runner, but what drives me crazy is when you have 4 runners running abreast and they don't move. And you're like, what is happening? Like, I don't even understand like why you think it's okay just to claim all of this space.
Yeah.
You have problems when you have large groups of runners meeting large groups of bikers too coming in. So the wider would be great. And like you said, the markings and whatnot.
Yeah. I do think the striping is very important. And that's something that's kind of low hanging fruit that we can go out there. I mean, pavement markings it's not the cheapest thing in the world to do, but it's also not, building a new greenway. All right. Well, I think they're going to call us back in here soon. Any last takeaway? I feel like we solved the problem. We're all good now.
I think Susan had it for everybody. She just slam dunk there. Right?
So Susan, when we do the second one, let's see what the second one, I'll get you going thinking about the second one so you can come in with the answer. Oh, the second one's about the Greenway map updates. So it's going to be harder to come up with an out of the park answer for that one. But they're going to be asking us about impressions of new proposed trails, how the network fits into the larger transportation system, and how it preserves and provides access to open space. All right, they're calling us back. I will see. I think we get the same group. I hope we get the same group. Bye, guys.
See ya.
Hey, Jen.
Hi. I just accidentally got out of a chat when I was in the middle of a sentence, but oh well.
Oh.
Hey, Jen.
Oh, hi, Susan. I was like, get this thing off my screen. Whoops, that took me back. Dang it.
Be careful what button you push.
Too, I'm sure. How are you?
Good, good. Susan just solved all of our problems in our session.
Oh, yeah?
Excellent. Yeah, it was pretty awesome.
5 minutes, I'll get it done.
Undo my recording. Here we go. Okay, so did he give us the map to look at?
In here, hang on.
In this, is it? Hold on. I think I have it. I can share my screen if you guys.
I thought he said you'd have access to it.
Yeah, I've got it. Okay, let me share my screen. And let's see if I can go to. Okay, so this is broken up into so these are the existing trails. Did that work? Are you guys seeing the right screen?
Yep.
Okay, thanks. Let me see. I'm trying to figure out how to do the wide view here. So you would know in PDF how to.
Yeah, it should be down in the bottom corner, bottom right-hand corner. There should be one that says presentation view or slideshow.
Let's see. It's not giving me that option.
You have a bit of a different version. Is that the
Yeah.
online? Is that like an online version
I
or?
don't know what it's doing. I can zoom into any area.
You're on SharePoint. Sorry.
Yes, yeah. So these are the existing trails. So we've got 117 miles, connects several parks and destinations within the city. So as you guys know, this is all the Neuse River Trail, and then this is Crabtree Creek Trail coming up this way. This is Walnut Creek going up to Rocky Branch. And then we come around, and this is House Creek that runs up this way. I'm sorry, this is House Creek right here that joins with Crabtree, and then Crabtree runs that way. So that's existing. These are the planned trails. So you can see that kind of fills out the network a little bit better. We've got some short and long trails in here. And then removals, island trails that do not build on existing system. And some trails are proposed to be rerouted. So these are little orphan trails that may be being rerouted or removed. New trails, here we go, new trails. So we're getting some in the western part of the city. And then in the southern part, this is, looks like down around Tryon Road. Let me see if I can zoom in here.
Iona, do you think that is actually sidewalk that they're talking about as trail?
It kind of looks like it, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, that's why I'm asking that question.
Yeah. It doesn't look like a lot of so like this New Hope corridor, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
So this is Walnut Creek right here, and this is Crabtree Creek right here. And these must be sidewalk connections, but maybe they're planned to be multi-use paths or shared use paths. So those would be 10 feet wide or wider and behind a curb. So you would be physically separated from, and that I can ask that question, or we can ask that question when we come back. I don't see much in the way of like kind of brand new alignment kind of trails.
Yeah.
This is very hard for you guys to react to. I'm sorry. Okay, so this is, let's zoom back out here. So this is integrated into the larger transportation network, and how does it preserve open space? So our dark green lines are the existing trails. The light green are the planned trails. And then the purple are new trails, which, as to Kara's point, I think are quite a few multi-use paths. So if you kind of look at this and blur your eyes, you do get a good network connection, you know, and that might be kind of the way to, that's about all we can do in this amount of time.
Well, one of the things that I think is interesting about the whole thing is that there's still a lot of gaps east to west. And so I think you'd have to look at the existing sidewalk and neighborhood streets as connectors, and how, you know, maybe between looking at bicycle and pedestrian on-road facilities, how that interfaces with this map to help those east-west connection between the ridges. I think you know, that's always been a problem in Raleigh, is that there's places where it's really, you can get certain places, but then there's places that it's almost nearly impossible to connect between. So I think there's a whole, like you said, I've just seen this, so I can't really react too much to it. But like, for instance, when you look at North Raleigh and the proposed things, they're all going north-south, 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 north-south.
Yeah.
And so how does a person who is using that from their house, how can they use that safely without using roads and sidewalks? And so I think, it's not like it has to be solved with a greenway, but should those urban more considered greenways, or should we just think about how greenways and sidewalks and bike lanes and multi-use paths that aren't part of a greenway system work? So the city has changed over to recommending more multi-use paths, and they're not called greenways. So how do they fit when you overlay that with this?
Right. I put some words in your mouth in my notes, but I just said it needs to be a more holistic network, and needs to overlay transportation like head network.
Well, since I'm just talking off the top of my head, I'm sure you're taking words away because I kind of run on.
All right. And that is our last map. Was there anything, do you want me to zoom into any sections? So yeah, like this purple section, this is Lumley Road, I think. And that is all multi-use paths, sidewalk connection. And then so is this Briar Creek Parkway. So I think the purples are quite a few multi-use paths.
Yeah, I think you're right. That map does integrate them. But you see what I'm saying? Like right there where you were just zoomed in, there's no east-west connector.
No.
So, how do people safely use either of those routes? And how do you do that?
Well, I mean, that's the legacy of our stream corridor. That's why we don't have any greenways going into downtown, because downtown's on top of a hill and we don't have any streams going there. So, that is the legacy, and that gets back to this policy question of, can we have greenways that don't follow streams?
Right. Well, that's my point exactly. Is I think we're at a point in the city of Raleigh where we have to say we're going to have greenways that don't follow streams, because otherwise there's really not a lot of connectivity. And I don't think the public is going to understand the difference between a greenway corridor and a multi-use path, along Blue Ridge Road. I mean, I don't think that they're going to say, yeah, I'm going to go ride my bike, or I'm going to go walk. So I think that, how those two are going to interface is the future of this network.
Other thoughts, you guys? I know we're putting you on the spot here.
No, I think the additions are nice, but I kind of agree with what Susan was saying. There's even looking at this map, it's great having some, like over there in kind of northeast section, it's nice to have the loops to be able to get to different, you can make loops around if you're just walking or running, whatever it may be, but to get from point A or from east to west, you have to kind of go south down to a trail and across, versus having some sort of safe connection in that direction. But I didn't think about that, because I used to work on NC State's campus and we had all the trails coming off of there. So I never thought about really or on Centennial campus, how there are no trails going directly downtown either. Never really.
It's because it's on a hill. You don't have a stream going there.
Yeah.
Well, and we paved over the stream on Capitol Boulevard. So that's hard to.
So those are both really great points. And again, it kind of goes back to I really truly believe that we need to start promoting the greenways, not necessarily just for recreation, but for transportation, and treat them more like they're roads. And that point about them going north, south, east, west is a great one.
Awesome. Was that Heather talking? I can't see my people anymore.
Yeah, it was
okay.
Heather.
Thanks.
I didn't add anything new to it. I just sort of reiterated.
No, it's good. I totally agree with you.
I know
you were very succinct.
We're all following Susan's coattails is what we're doing.
I know, Susan, can you be in all of my groups?
Susan, can you come to all of my meetings?
In your college group projects by yourself?
You know, Heather, the point that you make about maintenance is really compelling too, because, you know, if something goes wrong with one of our roads, we fix it, you know, immediately.
May I tell you why it's such a pain point?
Yes.
We live near the Crabtree Creek Greenway, and we have many neighbors that have tried to use the Greenway for transportation, and specifically the bridge at Capitol Boulevard and all of the sewer reconstruction and things along those lines. Like they were riding their bikes, they were doing this, they were doing that. I was too. We can't do that and haven't been able to do that for years.
Mm-hmm.
So because of that, again, that east-west connection, which I never even thought about, that's the only way, and there's no way around all of that construction.
Yeah.
So for anybody who wanted to use it for transportation in that area, they haven't been able to do it for so long. It's really, it actually became, Carrie, you probably know, it was a social media thing for a while. It was Fix the Bridge.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
I
I think that
people can't, if you can't rely on it for transportation because of maintenance issues, then we're never going to be able to get there.
Which that's the fun.
Right, exactly. Exactly. It can't be a transportation network if it's just considered a frivolous, nice thing that can be closed down for 2 years while a new sewer line's going in. And, you know, one of the things that BPAC gets concerned about is when greenways and sidewalks are closed for construction, you know, where are people going to go? So I think finding that the importance of the greenways and it's a horrible disconnect for recreational use, but it really does sever that transportation use completely. One of the other things BPAC is worried about is that when you're commuting on a bicycle in certain times of the year, it's dark. And so there's places where, you know, it'd be a lot safer for the greenways to have lighting and be considered more urban, you know, sidewalk / bikeways that are maybe, you know, improved lighting. And, you know, I don't know how that would be.
So
I don't know if people are going to ever go for that, but I think it's a necessary thing if you really want people to commute.
So it also, just to add to that from an accessibility standpoint, so owning a bike is a lot cheaper than owning a car. And if you're renting and trying to find a place to live, finding a place where you can commute safely on your bike to work using a greenway is a huge accessibility issue for folks that, are lower income.
Right, and then as you know, Jared just mentioned too, when you start thinking about the bus rapid transit coming along, and you know, more frequent bus ridership and things like that, I think that there's a lot of people who can't afford cars or don't drive for other reasons. There's a lot of younger people who don't choose to drive; they'd rather use transit, and that bike and walk connectivity is what you're going to need to make the transit successful. So, you know, that's where you do need lights. You need to make sure it's more of a.
Okay, they are calling us back, guys. I think I've taken pretty good notes and we are recording it. I just want to thank you guys for such great, thoughtful comment. Like I said, I feel like I got the A team here. So I appreciate it very much.
I love our group.
I do too. I think we should be a club.
The Greenway gang.
Be a hanger on.
Rusty, how fast do you run? I'm trying to see if I could keep up with you.
Not very.
Welcome back, everyone.
Yeah.
Ran out of time again.
Always. Never fails. Okay. Let's see here.
Hey, Jared.
Yeah.
Are you in a padded cell, buddy?
He's been asked that a few times today.
Oh gosh.
Okay.
I'm in the recording studio.
No, it looks like you have a recording studio or a padded cell.
That's
I like
right.
it.
Yep.
I'm in the recording studio. No, I'm just a phone booth with carpet walls. Call it what you want. Awesome. Well, hey, thank you everyone for taking some time in the smaller groups. I think that, obviously I don't know what was said in all of them. I was excited to hear what we were talking about. Can everybody hear me still? Yes. Am I frozen?
Can still hear you.
Yeah. You can still hear me. Okay, good. That's what I needed to know. So I think that one of the things that's exciting, like I said, we're going to give you some homework to dive into some specifics on the Greenway Trails and what the additions were to the map. I think that the one thing that is really valuable to know is that when we started to put together all of the trail pieces, we're kind of evaluating the system. One of the things that we had heard is balancing what's new and new trails with maintenance is obviously something that I think that we're going to continue to struggle with because we have such a large system. And so we wanted to, I think it's easy to add a lot of new lines on a map, especially when you think about every place that you want to connect, every park, your house, right? Stephen brought his house into our conversation. And so I think that what we wanted to do is really focus any new lines. And so we would ask as you do some of your review to think about what are those are we getting it right if we're going to focus what these recommendations or changes to the map may be. So with that, I'm going to share my screen one more time, and I think we might get out of here even a little bit earlier. So let's see here. I'm gonna share. Okay. Ashley, I see you. Can you give me a thumbs up that you can see my screen? All right, perfect. So our last breakout group, hopefully you all like that. Let's talk a little bit about next steps, and then we'll wrap things up for today. So our next step is a big one, and that's to develop the draft plan. We're thinking that we're going to have a draft plan out toward the end of this year, December 2020. And that's going to be an opportunity for us to bring the recommendations and kind of what's in that draft plan to the public. We mentioned it earlier, the city's going to host a virtual open house. We're excited about this. We're going to have ultimately 2 of them, one in that first period, December, January, and then again in the March, April timeframe, where we're going to have 3 live sessions. Still some conversation on how we can best engage people in a live fashion. And then also creating some on-demand content, knowing that not everyone will have the ability to jump in to a live session, but we don't want them to miss out just because they're not able to. So that on-demand content is really important. We're also going to be getting some updates, just kind of where we are in the process, what we've done, and what we're going to be doing from this point forward to both the Parks Board as well as to City Council in the coming months. And then really it's back to you. We're going to be developing our draft plan. And so hopefully sometime around the new year, all of us are coming back together to talk about that draft plan, talk about the recommendations in a little bit more detail, and then move forward into kind of the refining period, still targeting midsummer next year, 2021. You can tell it's been that kind of week already for that final plan. And we do still plan, we're excited about working with this group, and hopefully, fingers crossed, that by the time that this is adopted, we can have some kind of celebration with all of you. So I think that is all I've got. I'm not sure if there's any questions or comments. I'm going to stop my sharing so I can see all of your faces. And Chris or anyone else, if there's any. Guys, let's see some comments here. We've got Stephen added a link. Cool publication for the Raleigh system. Beverly, will you share any prioritization of the planned trails you did? Yes, absolutely.